Hello, so today I want to talk about the Stations of the Cross. So the Stations of the Cross is also known as the Way of the Cross, or in Latin, Via Crucis. It's a Catholic devotion of 14 steps or 14 stations that commemorates Jesus Christ's last day on earth as a man. It's a mini pilgrimage, and at each station we meditate on a specific event from Jesus's last day. I wanted to talk about Stations of the Cross because I actually didn't know about this devotion growing up. I don't remember going as a child. I learned about this devotion in adulthood. And this devotion is typically done on Wednesdays and Fridays during Lent. It's often even called a Lenten devotion, but you can do the Stations of the Cross on your own really anytime throughout the entire year. But it's especially done during Lent on Wednesdays and Fridays, especially Fridays, and especially Good Friday. And this devotion actually started in Jerusalem when believers would actually walk the path that Jesus Christ walked to Calvary. And that path is called Via Dolorosa, which is the way of sorrow. If you go to a Stations of the Cross devotion held at your local church, especially if it's your first time, don't be late, because when you walk in, you want to make sure to find the little booklet so you can follow along with the stations and the prayers. And different churches do it differently. Most churches in the states that I've lived in, at least, walk around the nave of the church, because most churches in the nave is the main part of the church, have 14 small icons or images of these 14 stations of the cross. And so usually for a Stations of the Cross devotion, everyone together makes a mini pilgrimage around the nave and stops at each of these icons to meditate on that event of Jesus's last day. But I have seen at some churches where they just sit in the pews as if they were sitting there for Mass, and they don't make that mini pilgrimage. That I have seen, but not as often as I've seen the walking around in a mini pilgrimage. So for this devotion, there's usually an opening and closing prayer, and each station is announced. Everyone prayerfully reflects on each station. There are traditional prayers for each station. Sometimes there are scriptural reflections, not always. And after each station, a verse of the Stabat Mater is usually sung, not always. And I just want to quickly share the 14 Stations of the Cross. I'm going to read them because I'll probably mess up the order if I do it by memory. But the first station is Jesus is condemned to die. The second is he accepts and carries his cross. The third is when he falls for the first time. The fourth is when he meets his mother Mary. The fifth is when Simon helps Jesus carry his cross. The sixth is when Saint Veronica now, wipes Jesus's face. The seventh is when Jesus falls for the second time. The eighth is when Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. The ninth is when Jesus falls for the third time. And the 10th is when Jesus is stripped of his clothes. The 11th is when he is nailed to the cross. The 12th is when he dies on the cross. The 13th is when he's taken down from the cross. And the 14th is when he is laid in the tomb. Those are the 14 traditional stations of the cross. Some churches add a 15th station, which is the resurrection of Jesus, but that is not part of the traditional 14. So as you can see, this is a beautiful devotion that you can take part in this Lent. I'm sure a church near you is having the Stations of the Cross. So I encourage you to go. I went to one recently with some friends, and afterwards my friend cooked a nice meatless meal, a soup. So we had a very simple meatless soup for dinner. And I share that because I love YouTube, and I love, listening to these holy Catholic women while I'm washing the dishes, but I just want to encourage you to take part in fellowship in your community. Whether you spend time with non-Catholics, sharing that light of Christ with them, or you spend time with Catholics and really build each other up within the body of Christ, or a little of both. I just think it's really important that we're out in the world. And I love YouTube so much, but YouTube does not replace that in-person fellowship. So I encourage you to go to a Stations of the Cross and meditate on Christ's sacrifice for us. And if you're in a season of life that you can't get to it in person, that is completely understandable. You can do this devotion at home anytime. So check out my resources linked below for you. And I hope you're having a beautiful Lent. Until next time, bye.